if I have to look at this hay, there's some quality differences in it that are good. I mean, the bales are good and tight. The steamer that we used made it so that these bales are slick and tight and good. The quality of the alfalfa is excellent. What you see is a quality negative on this hay that a lot of buyers wouldn't like, but we don't care about. As you see some of these yellow stems in there, and that's from the grain crop from the first crop. So if you remember, we interseeded the three-way grain mix last fall in all these. I guess the other thing that we really like about this alfalfa and the steamer is if you look at it from the end, you can kind of see the leaf pattern in the hay where, you know, we're capturing a lot of those leaves and keeping them on the stems. You can kind of see that in that flaking of the bale too. So, you know, second crop hay here generally, I mean, we have to work really fast because it's really hot outside, and so a lot of this hay was cut one day, raked the next day, and baled the third day or the fourth day. That's how fast it went. And if we don't do it that fast, then this hay gets so brittle and so dry that it really makes it hard to bale it up nice. This hay, we stack up in this north barn. We kind of try to start separating stuff for stuff that we would possibly sell versus stuff that we would feed here on the ranch. Last year, because of the drought and a lot of the mama cows being here all winter, we fed basically all the hay that we grew. That's not a very good economic pattern for us. If we're feeding all that cow to all this hay to the mother cows, it's really expensive because it's worth a lot of money. And so ultimately our goal is to keep the mother cows outside on the BLM ground during the winter months and not home eating hay. And if that happens, and if we get the rainfall and the growth out there in the desert country to get that to happen, then we can sell this hay. And so the first crop hay, that was all the grain hay mix. We put it in the other barn that's closer to the feed station. We'll feed that first. All of the three-way grain hay that's got more of the kind of fiber and bulk to it that's good for mother cows. We put all that down there in the other barn closer to the kind of the feed station. And then we start separating this alfalfa hays that are more saleable and just higher in protein that we wouldn't necessarily need or keep, we're hoping, if it rains. Alfalfa has a lot of differences, okay? There's differences in the time of the year and the amount of protein and energy that are in the hay. So generally early in the spring, the first crop alfalfa, we call it kind of hot. It's got a lot more to it. And then generally the second, third crop hay, where the summer heat is higher, the hay grows faster, but it kind of spreads the energy or the heat, the protein out, and you have more fiber and it's not as concentrated, so it's not as hot. So and then in the fall, when things cool down again, then the hay grows slower again, and then you get back to that more hot hay that was more likely to bloat something. And so again, in other mountain valleys, Utah, north of here by Ely, other places like that, they don't have that problem as much as where we're low down and in the desert at this climate here. Now if you go south into California, Blythe and down there, that's even worse, right? And so dairy farms, especially, that are looking for a lot of protein in the hay and a lot of nutrition for milking value, they love to come to these high Nevada desert valleys and Utah valleys because that hay is really hot. And the nighttime cool down causes that. It gets so cold at night and in the mornings that hay grows a little slower, keeps a lot more protein in it, and then it just has a lot higher nutrition value. So, I mean, if you relate that to horse people versus cow people, most horse people will only buy a second or third crop alfalfa hay if they're feeding alfalfa to horses at all, because it's not as hot as the first and fourth crop hay. The other thing that you can do is you count the days on the alfalfa. So we don't necessarily really want to make dairy quality super hot hay here. We're going to go for a little more for production and kind of lower that. And so if you let that hay grow past the 30-day mark and it starts to get flowers on it and it goes into more of a reproductive stage instead of a vegetative stage, then you get a lot more stem size to it, and it also brings that that relative feed value down, and so it's not as hot or cause bloat, right? So I guess that's a long answer to his quick question about do cows bloat on alfalfa. The other side of that is with a cow being a ruminant animal, you have to give those rumen bugs time to adjust to a new feed, okay? So it's not a monogastric system like us. We eat something, our stomach acids digest it, and it kind of goes through our system. In cows, you're creating a culture, and so you're introducing a feed into a big fermentation vat there in the rumen, and there's millions of little microbes that then are going to eat and digest that feed. And that animal has to kind of let that culture develop, and you have to introduce animals to new feed over time or slowly, because if those microbes all of a sudden expand in a population, just explode, or if those microbes are eating something that they're not used to and they produce a tremendous amount of gas, then you get into the bloat, okay? And the combinations of pHs and sugars and everything going on in there. So basically with cattle, you just want to introduce them to a new feed slowly. And so as you do that, the microbes, all those little bugs in their belly can adjust to that. They can figure out how to digest it well, and then you go on. Other things that we do to saften that up so that we don't bloat our animals is that we add corn silage, we add the grain hay, we have a mix of things that have more fiber and less heat to them. I always say heat, but I mean heat is basically calories, and calories come from, you know, the protein and the energy. But and so feeding's a little bit of a science with cows, and the fact that you want to balance that. And again, that's what we do with our feed truck. We're able to take all of the components that we need, how much fiber we need, how much protein we need, how much energy we need, and take different feed sources and blend those together and feed a ration in the feed bunk then that is perfectly balanced for those animals, that will optimize their growth, but not be dangerous to them as far as like a bloat or acidosis or other things.